What's going on, everybody? It's Mcfly here. So, this is going to be episode number 2 of the Mcfly Talks podcast, get to know you session, whatever you want to call it. Um, Today's going to be a little bit different. We talked about relationships last time, and some of the feedback I got was pretty cool. I know that there were some people that wanted kind of another voice. That way, you get like kind of a different opinion, but maybe in the future we'll do that. Right now, I'm kind of essentially using this as therapy. But today I wanted to talk about kind of anxiety and dealing with anxiety. There are, a lot of different mental health issues, but personally, the one that I deal with the most is anxiety. And for those of you that don't know, anxiety, general anxiety, which I am diagnosed with, can lead to a lot of different things. There's the chances of it leading to depression. Overall, it can lead to other mental health issues. So I do deal with anxiety. I'm pretty sure I've had it my whole life. I didn't get diagnosed with it until this year. In fact, a couple months ago, I went to the doctor and was saying, "Hey, I have all these issues going on. I want to know if it's like stress or what it could be." And they had me take all these tests, blood tests. All the blood tests came back normal. All the other stuff came back normal. The heart rate test. I'm a little bit overweight, but not enough for it to cause the other issues. But in any event, I decided that I wanted to do something about it. And instead of kind of letting it take over my life and essentially affect me and my family, I wanted to do something about it. And there's a lot of people who, when they have issues, either they're in denial about it, or they feel they don't need to go to somebody else because they have so much pride or so much of an ego. And I had been there for a long time. I didn't believe in therapy. I didn't believe that, going to therapy was something that was needed for me because, I don't have, suicidal thoughts or I don't ever get so down that I can't handle what I'm going through. But that kind of changed a little bit this year, just between all of the changes going on at my house. I have 2 kids and my wife's working now. So, essentially when I would get home from work, I'd go pick up the kids. I'd start cooking dinner and all that stuff. And like, those are womanly duties. No, I just wasn't used to that. I don't sue me for that, guys. It was a joke. It was a joke. I'm not good at cooking, so that frustrated me. And essentially, it was going to one job and then coming home and doing another job. And I commend my wife. I commend Alyssa for that because she does this every day. She's working now at a preschool, so she's dealing with kids 24/7. And it's not as fun and it's not as fulfilling when it's not your kids. So I commend her for that, but that kind of took its toll a little bit, and I've been stressed out and not sleeping a lot because of just the kids in general. For those of you who don't know, kids don't sleep very well sometimes. Every kid's different, but our daughter Aubrey finally started sleeping in her own bed after 5 years throughout the night. That's a big step. Our son does not. He decides that he likes to come into our room in the morning. So we haven't been getting a full night's sleep for 5 years, essentially 6 years. So there's that. But all these different things kind of caused me to start not being able to handle my daily life. Alyssa started noticing it, and I kind of was like, okay, if she's saying something, then it must be noticeable. Like I thought I'm pretty good at hiding it, but as I said in the last episode, that I wear my heart on my sleeve. So she knew something was up, and because of that, I kind of went and got tested for all these different things. And, I got tested for a lot of stuff, guys. I got tested for thyroid. I got tested for high blood pressure. I got tested for things, and none of that stuff came to fruition. I did start going to therapy, I think a week after that, when I figured out it was general anxiety, and they're actually the one that kind of confirmed that that's what it was. Look, I don't want to put down therapy. I don't think therapy is necessarily for everyone. I do think that therapy is something that you have to try it. I only tried it for a couple months. And what happened was I wanted to go to my 5th session yesterday, but because there's an issue with email going to spam and I needed to respond for a certain amount of time before they canceled my appointments, and I didn't respond. So I have to restart the whole thing. But
shut up, bro, shut up, bro. Shut up, shut up.
the thing with therapy is you have to want it. You have to want to better yourself. You have to want to go through the process of talking to somebody about your problems and kind of giving in a little bit to the methods that they use. If you're hard-headed enough to where you don't think you need it and you're just doing it to make other people happy, in my opinion, that's not the best way to go about therapy. And I know that puts a lot of onus on you when it's already stressful. And that's kind of how I felt, right? Like people my doctors telling me like, you have to want to help yourself. It's like, well, I don't think I need to go into therapy. I don't think I need to do all this. I think I can just deal with it on my own. And, you know, the doctor was like, go talk to the therapist, tell them that. Tell them what you're thinking. Tell them that you don't think you need it. And they will talk you through it. And they did. And I think therapy was helpful, but you have to find the right therapist. I think that's important, is people give up after the first therapist. My therapist was fine. She let me talk. She let me talk about whatever I wanted to talk about. The only issue that I had was after a few sessions, we kind of kept going over the same thing. And I felt like there was no breakthroughs, but enough of my experience with therapy right now. We'll get back to that in a second. So my anxiety is it's general anxiety. So for those of you who do not know how general anxiety works, you could do a quick Google search, but I will explain it for you. According to the good old Googles, so generalized anxiety disorder is a disorder characterized by excessive or unrealistic anxiety about two or more aspects of life, often accompanied by symptoms such as palpitations, shortness of breath, or dizziness. So that's kind of the extreme, right? Essentially what it's saying is it's excessive or unrealistic anxiety. That's the most important part, about multiple aspects of life. So that could be work, social relationships, romantic relationships, your financial stature in life. It could be, if you're going to school, your schoolwork. It could be your career. It could be anything. All of these things. It could be a couple of those. It could be all of them. It could be multiple. So that's kind of how a really, really TLDR of generalized anxiety disorder. For me, I think the cool thing about going to therapy was kind of talking through what affects me, and when I found I had general anxiety disorder, it made sense. And people would ask me, well, what is it that causes it? It's like, I don't really know. I don't know if there's necessarily like a direct cause, but through therapy, I found out that it was mostly myself and how I saw myself, right? Me being a father to my kids, making sure I'm a good father. And anytime I mess up with them or they don't listen or something like that, it would end up affecting me to the point where I thought I was not worthy of being a parent. So every little thing that I would do wrong, I'm not worthy of being a parent. And that's where the excessive or unrealistic anxiety part of it comes into play, right? I really think that that's kind of where my bread and butter is. The other thing too is with our financial situation. So for the most part, I wouldn't say we're well off, but we're pretty okay. We're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore with this new job that I got, and the fact that my wife's working. But I always feel like the pressure is on me, and that's nobody's fault. I want somebody to be able to stay home with our kids. That is one of us, right? I don't want our kids to go to a babysitter or something like that. No offense to any of you babysitters out there, but it's just, I want our kids to be raised by us. So, and my wife and I talked through that when we got together and we started getting serious about, like, we both want her to stay home. I'll be the breadwinner, but it's a lot easier to make those expectations when you aren't living through it. So I felt there was a lot of pressure on me for that, and both her and I are kind of old fashioned. I know it's 2022 and women are independent and stuff like that, but that doesn't mean that everybody has to live that way. And that doesn't mean that's right or wrong. It's just, we are very old fashioned in that sense that, my wife stays home. She takes care of the kids. She cooks, she cleans, she does all of the dishes and stuff. I mean, I do the dishes too, but you get my point. It's the old-fashioned way of looking at it, except for the fact that we don't think that, that's what she's supposed to do and that's what women are supposed to do. It's just that that's what we agreed to. We want each other's responsibilities to be. So that was another aspect of it, was the money aspect, which in turn ends up being the job aspect and trying to find another job and all of that stuff. So that was taking its toll on me as well. So all of these things, and I bring all of this up because I think there's a lot of people who are afraid to admit to themselves that something is wrong, right? People think, I just had a bad day, or I had a bad week, or I had a bad month. Those things add up. And like I said before, for a long time, I wasn't having those thoughts of I wasn't having thoughts of suicide. I've never had that, but like the depression wasn't. I didn't have a lot of depression, but depression started setting in, and it was happening often, and more days during the week. You know, instead of having 1 or 2 days a month, it started happening 3 or 4 times a month, and then it got to once or twice a week, to the point where I realized something was going on, and I had to admit to myself that, and I had to come to terms with it. And for a while, that in turn ended up causing me anxiety. It ended up causing me depression because I felt weak. I felt like I couldn't deal with my life that, you know, that we built for ourselves. And looking at it logically, our life is awesome, right? We have two great kids. We have this beautiful home that we've created for ourselves, a great backyard. We now have a pool that I put up. But everybody's issues are subjective, right? So like, obviously, I'm not poor living on the streets, but you know, rich people have issues too that they have to deal with. Comparatively speaking, to somebody who's poor, it might not seem like they should have any issues with that, but we all have our own issues that we deal with differently because all of our experiences are different. So that's kind of how I felt. And I'm slowly working towards that. You know, I'm trying to look at the positive of things, and if I find myself now getting frustrated, I definitely now kind of take a deep breath, relax. If I have to walk away into another room for a few minutes to kind of figure that out for myself, then I do. I'm trying not to let it affect my kids. The whole reason I wanted this episode to be about anxiety is I've noticed kind of a uptick in anxiety, social anxiety, and depression between, you know, friends, colleagues, people I know from streaming, people I know from content creating, whatever, because of the pandemic and people being afraid of that, or nervous or whatever, or just having to deal with all the changes that come with that. People who don't like working from home have to work from home, and people who do work from home still are affected because of the regulation stuff they have to go through. I've seen a large uptick of people who are depressed, who are anxious. You know, I don't want people to be discouraged by that. I think it's important to find an outlet, right? Like for me, man, I wish I could pick up the guitar every day and play. I just don't have the time. And people say, make the time. And honestly, I think that's a little bit of bullshit, because I think that there's so much time in the day, right? And I could take time away from studying because I'm trying to better my career, or I could take time away from hanging out with my kids, or I can take time away from sleeping to do that. So what do we do in those instances? Well, instead of taking 15 minutes to look at your phone on your break at work, take a walk. Take a 15-minute walk, and you can listen to a podcast. That's what I've been doing, and that's been helping. Take that 15 minutes and write down a journal, or write a poem, or draw. They have adult coloring books. There's all these different things. You have to try all these different things that will work for you, right? I'm a degenerate, so I play video games, or I'll listen to podcasts sometimes, but I'll play video games. I'll watch YouTube for hours on end sometimes when I shouldn't. So we all have our different ways. Mine's not necessarily the best way. However, it works for me. So I'm not going to say it's a bad way either. You kind of have to gauge that for yourself and figure out if those things you're using, you don't want it to become an excuse, right, of why things don't get done. Your responsibilities don't get done. You want it to be a way for you to escape reality for a few minutes a day to help you kind of refocus. But I really do think that anxiety is kind of something that a lot of people kind of shove off. There's a lot of companies now that have been better about mental health days and taking mental health days and giving you a full 8-hour day to have a mental health day, which is awesome. But there's a lot of people and a lot of companies and a lot of just groups in general that don't believe mental health is really an issue, right? And I'm not getting into the politics of all that stuff. I just think that what you need to do for you is most important than what anybody else thinks or says. I have lost friends and family because of things that I've had to do for my family and for myself. And at the end of the day, it definitely sucks, but it also is something that it just has to be done for your well-being. And honestly, if people don't understand that, whether it's family members or friends, that's more on them than it is on you. Obviously, you have to be nice about it. Don't be a dick about it. Don't be like, well, if you're not going to let me drink all day and get drunk, then you must not support me. That's how no, it obviously has got to be responsible and realistic, right? But at the end of the day, if people don't support you, they're not going to be somebody you need in your life. But I digress. So the whole thing with anxiety, right, is like I said, find something that works for you to kind of get you out of that funk, kind of reset your mind. A lot of people will do stuff that is uncomfortable or challenging for them for whatever amount of time you're using for that you time, just because it resets your brain, right? Like for me, it might be like working out. I hate working out. I'm bad at it. But when I was working out, that was when I was actually mentally the most stable. And that's, a lot of people will say that. A lot of people who work out will tell you that working out's the best way to kind of reset, be in your own space for that hour that you're working out. But again, my time is limited, so it's hard for me to do that. But that's just one example. Some people just close their eyes and listen to music for 15 minutes, and that helps, or listen to a podcast. Like, all these things are worthy ways of doing it. Like I said, I play video games because I'm a degenerate and I'm a 10-year-old living in a 32-year-old's body. There's a whole other aspect of that too that comes with that I don't want to get into for this. But for me, what makes me feel good is doing things that I am good at. And I'm naturally pretty good at video games because I've been playing my whole life. So when I succeed at a video game, it makes me feel good. It gets my, my serotonin going and all that stuff. So that's one reason I do it. And you'll notice a lot of times if you come into my stream, it's hard for me after a few hours, like 3 hours, for me to stay upbeat because I get social anxiety. I start looking at everything, like how many viewers are in here, who's talking, who's not talking, how many people came in and just left right away because they weren't into it. And that slowly takes its toll on my mental thought, my mental space. And by the time 3 hours hits, 4 hours hits, I'm no longer into the stream. These are things that take its toll. At work too, something might happen. I might have made a mistake. People make mistakes. I get called out on it. And instead of me looking at what happened, learning from my mistake and saying, okay, I'm going to own it and fix it, I tend to be on the defensive, even if I have no right to be defensive, because I feel I'm being personally attacked when really all my boss or the coworkers telling me is like, hey, you made a mistake here, be aware of it next time, type of thing. And it's very difficult for me to take negative criticism without me blowing out of proportion. Again, that comes with the anxiety part of it being unrealistic. So, but let's talk about the social aspect part of it, at least for me. And this one I think is the worst. I've been very shy my whole life, and I thought literally that I was just shy. But looking back on it, my whole thing was, I was from preschool till about 3rd grade. I was bullied pretty hard. Actually, till about 3rd grade, I was bullied pretty hard. I mentioned before in the last episode about my parents getting divorced, and instead of all of my peers at school being there for me, there was a couple who were, obviously, but there was a lot of them that made fun of me for it. And some of them said some stuff like, it's your fault, or you couldn't even keep your parents together, stuff like that. Like, none of it was true, right? And looking back on it now, it was stupid for me to think that it was true, but that stuff and bullying took its toll, right? And moving forward socially, I was very separated from everybody. I didn't talk. I didn't try to make friends. The only friends that I made pretty much throughout elementary school and junior high were friends or people that came up to me and talked to me. So that's definitely something that I feel is part of my social anxiety. And look, there's a lot of people who have issues in social gatherings or events. Some people are okay with, 500 people, but hate being one-on-one. Some people all hate being in a large group of people that don't mind being one-on-one. There's all different types of social anxiety, right? For me, honestly, I don't like being in a spot where I don't know anybody or I'm in large groups. So for me, if I don't know somebody, if I'm at a party, like I mentioned in my last episode with the whole, one of my exes thing, where she kind of left me alone for a long period of time where I didn't know anybody, I will not go up to people and try to get to know them just because of, worrying about not so much if they'll like me, but will I say something stupid or will I cause this awkward moment that I cannot come back from? So I don't like being in a spot where I don't know anybody. If somebody were to come up to me, it's not like I'll run away, obviously. I will start to conversate with them, but I will never be the one to initiate. And for a long time, that was a big thing that kind of hindered me from making friends. Even in high school, when I had somebody that took me in, they were a grade older than me, who knew me from when I went to a babysitter for 10 years. she was like, why don't you hang out with us? Because I switched districts and stuff. So I hung out with them, but I never, ever really talked. I kind of just hung out and laughed at their jokes and didn't say anything just because I didn't know anybody. And one of their friends, Lewis, was like kind of the only one who was also kind of quiet. We were by ourselves one-on-one, and he was like asking me questions, and I started talking, and that was the most I ever talked. So like I said, I'm not afraid to talk to somebody. It's just a matter of being the one to initiate. Like I said, that's my social anxiety, right? There's going to be other people who might not like to be approached, but like to be the first one to initiate. Recently, though, a good example, well, relatively recently, was when my boy Greg and his now wife Lauren got engaged. They had a impromptu engagement party at their apartment, and this had been a while since I hung out in big groups because I know I've been doing the adulting thing and the parenting thing and just being old and staying home. You know, I'm a 62-year-old now. I go to bed by 9, and I wake up at 6, hang out with the kids. That's it. That's my life now, guys. Don't grow up. But you know, I went to that whole thing, and my wife stayed with the kids just because we couldn't both go. So, you know, I was there, and I knew almost everybody minus a few people. There was about 25 people there, maybe 30, and I knew about 20 of them. So, but I had to every hour or two kind of take a 15-minute break and just go outside and get fresh air because it became too overwhelming for me to kind of sit there and socialize for that long period of time. So again, that's another aspect of it, and that's how it affects me. I think the thing with social anxiety, right, is everything with anxiety affects everything else with anxiety. And what I mean by that is, if I have something going on at work, right, and then I go out to a social gathering with friends and stuff, how my anxiety for work might boil over into how I communicate and how I interact with my friends, right? If I'm being super anxious about work or I'm upset about work, I'm not going to be talkative. I'm not going to want to hang out. And then in turn, I'm going to be like, well, I'm not fun today. Why do I want to be here? Why do I want to hang out? And it makes it worse. It's compounding. I think it's really interesting now that I've kind of gone to therapy and kind of researched social anxiety, how long it took me to realize that this is what I have. Like, it's one of those things where hindsight's 2020, right? Like, of course I had it. Of course. No shot it was anything else. But you don't know until it's kind of put out in front of you with a roadmap and literally a step-by-step directions. Well, this is one aspect of anxiety that you've had on this date at this time. And it literally had to be laid out in front of me for it to work. And that might not be for everybody. I mean, look, I'm an idiot, all right? I don't know if you guys know this, but from a bachelor party... for my bachelor party, right, Greg? For my bachelor party, you know, it was a Friday night. Alyssa's like, make sure you get your homework done. I want to do stuff this weekend. Make sure you get it done today. So she kind of forced me to get my stuff done. I was like, that's a little weird, but she likes to do stuff on the weekend, so I'll finish. And then Greg hit me up. Hey, man, I need to go pick up our friend from the airport. Do you want to come? And I was like, sure. He's like, all right, bring Alyssa with you. It's like, okay. So we went, and he's like, hey, let's just get out here. Alyssa, can you go park the car real quick and we'll go get him? I was like, all right, that's a little weird, but sure. So we go into the airport, and he's like, man, I don't see him. Let's go get a boarding pass. And me being the idiot I was like, Greg does weird shit like this. It's a little weird, but I guess. And he's like, I'll pay for you, don't worry. So he buys a boarding pass. And we're literally waiting at the gate, going into the airport. And what does he say? He says, oh, by the way, we're going to Vegas for your bachelor party. It literally took me that long to figure out what the fuck was going on. And I felt stupid. Like, I should have known way ahead of that. My whole point to that story is sometimes I'm not very aware of my surroundings and what's going on. So for me, it took a lot more for me to figure it out. But the thing is here, like, if you guys come into my streams, those of you who know me pretty well, you probably wouldn't think that I'm very shy or very, or an introvert. And I've told people that at work recently that I'm an introvert. Like, really? You so talkative? If you come talk to me and you're friendly to me and you respect me, at that point, I don't mind, having a conversation. The whole social anxiety thing is really big. I think at the end of the day, right, people need to realize that their self-worth is kind of most important over everything. That's one of my bigger things too with my anxiety, is how negatively I looked upon myself and how much of a perfectionist I was with what I was doing, my actions, my day-to-day tasks. Like, man, I didn't get this one thing done. But I had 20 other things I did do, and I didn't get this one thing done, so I'm a failure because I couldn't get that one thing done. Take it step by step. Write down a list. If you have 20 things to do, spread them out through the week. Do 3 a day. And if you don't get the 20 done, that's fine. You did 3 a day. That's good. That's fucking good that you did those 3 a day, because for me, I used to spend time doing nothing. Doing nothing. And now being an adult, you got to get stuff done. So I think that's an important way to look at it is every accomplishment is that it's an accomplishment. Just because don't look at the things you didn't get done. And because one thing didn't get done, think you're a failure. It's okay. You missed that, but you did all these other things. That was a success. Now let's do this last thing that you need to do and get that done as well. So the whole thing here with anxiety and why I wanted to bring this up is I know there's got to be a lot of people going through this. And while my story might not be the same as yours, it could be very similar. There could be similarities. And I think to look upon yourself and realize that you need to look at your self-worth and you need to be able to want to help yourself and to allow yourself to kind of get to know yourself better. And that's the whole thing is I had to find myself, and it's helped me a lot in my life in the last few months. So just be patient. Nothing is everything's a work in progress. Just like working out, it's a good example. Everybody wants instant results, myself included. I want to lift weights for 10 minutes and look like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I can't because you got to work out, you got to eat right, you got to exercise, you got to do it for years and years and years to look like that. So it's the same thing working on yourself. It takes time. It's going to be your whole life that you're working on yourself, but every day is a baby step. Look, I with these podcasts or these sessions or these episodes, I listened to my last one and I was like, man, I wish I was funnier and I wish I had more personality. But honestly, like I said before, if I can help one person, I think this was helpful. And there's going to be other video series for my YouTube coming up here that's going to be serious. Going to be some that's very analytical, like this Call of Duty game review that's coming up. That's going to be like serious and analytical and have data and stuff. And there's going to be some that are going to be fun and going to be funny. For me, I think I'm funnier when I'm in a social environment. If I'm by myself, it doesn't come naturally to me to be funny by myself. I feel like I sound stupid and look stupid talking and trying to be funny to a screen that nobody's going to laugh at. That's a work in progress for me as well. But I'm hoping these will help you guys, and eventually people will hopefully appreciate these little episodes and these sessions that we have. So I do really appreciate all of you guys. If you can like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, I really do appreciate it. For those of you that are unawares, I am not streaming on Twitch this month until about July 14th. I will be streaming on YouTube only and only focusing on YouTube stuff. My Twitch account will be back in July. I just wanted to take a break from Twitch because that's been causing me some more anxiety and stuff, and I wanted to step back from it, just focus on my YouTube. So I do appreciate you guys bearing with me on that. The Discord is in the description. Make sure you go there. That is my personal Discord, but it is also a community Discord. Lots of cool people in there. We hang out, we game, we do a bunch of stuff. And lastly, I do want to say, coming up June 24th, we have an appointment to put down our shunned wiener dog, Gavin. He is 7 years old. Our 13-year-old Pit has outlived him. We spent a lot of money and a lot of time trying to figure out what it is between x-rays, blood tests, a lot of different things. And he just can't walk anymore. His back's constantly hurting him. We're giving him pain meds and that's no longer helping. And he's starting to not breathe right. So we are putting him down. So if I take a break for a little bit, I have to grieve, I have to mourn and stuff like that. But if I do come into the stream, you might see pictures or collage of him on there, and just say all good things, please, because I will call y'all out if you don't. But best wishes to him, and he'll finally be out of pain. So enough of that somber stuff. I appreciate you guys. I love you. Thank you so much. And please do remember that good vibes are contagious.